is 1 o'clock. The proceedings of this meeting will be recorded and made available on the internet. We'll move on to item 1.2 of our agenda, which is roll call, and I'll ask our clerk, Jesse Clark, to please call the roll.
Thank you. Mayor Lamstead, are you present?
I am present.
Deputy Mayor Armstrong?
Present.
Councillor Franzen?
Present.
Councillor Braybrook?
Present.
Councillor Cadigan?
Present.
For staff, we have Donna Taggart, CIO Treasurer. Present. Steve Brockbank, Director of Emergency Services.
Present.
Dylan Kosh, Director of Recreation and Facilities.
Present.
Evan Grieger, Director of Public Works.
Present.
Barbara Waldron, Director of Building and Planning, CBO. Present. Adele Arbor, Planner.
Present.
Bianca Dragicevic, Deputy Clerk.
Present.
Derek Bertram, Planning Technician.
Present.
And Matt Winches, Supervisor of Waste Public Works Coordinator.
Say it all. Present.
And Jesse Clark, Director of Corporate Services, Clerk is present.
Okay, thank you very much, Jesse. I can move on now to item 1.3 of our agenda, which is land acknowledgement and moment of reflection. We respectfully acknowledge that Trent Lakes and Peterborough County are located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaty First Nation, which include Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Beausoleil, and Georgina Island First Nations. Trent Lakes respectfully acknowledges that the Williams Treaty First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. We will now take a moment to reflect on these principles and our duties and responsibilities as members of council. Thank you. We can now move on to item 2 of our agenda, which is disclosure of pecuniary interest. If any member of council has a pecuniary interest on an item on the agenda, please disclose it now or anytime during the meeting prior to speaking on anything that you have an interest in. Seeing no hands, we can move on to item 3 of our agenda, which is the approval of the agenda. Councillor Cadigan, go ahead.
I have an amendment to move MPP Dave Smith's presentation up to following the adoption of the minutes.
Okay. Also to approve the agenda as circulated.
And to approve the agenda.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any further conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Now we can move on to item 4 of our agenda, which is the adoption of the minutes. We have item 4.1 as our regular council meeting, and item 4.2 is our statutory public meeting from March the 4th. Councillor Braybrook, go ahead.
Motion to adopt both.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any further conversation about the minutes? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Now we can move on to the next item on the agenda, which is MPP David Smith. Would you please come and do your presentation?
Does it matter which?
It doesn't really matter. I think they're both on.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
Welcome.
Well, for those of you who don't know, I'm Dave Smith. I'm the MPP elect for Peterborough Kawartha for about another 22 hours. Tomorrow at 10 after 10, I'll be sworn in as the MPP. So I will officially be able to drop the elect portion of it. As we were driving up here, I thought back to my first election in 2018. And Trent Lakes was the first council that I went to visit after being elected. After the 25 election, Trent Lakes is the first council that I've come to visit since being elected. So
Thank you.
Keeping that trend going. Over the last 7 years, there has been a number of things that we've been working on. When I look at Peterborough, I've tried to represent it as an entire region and not just any one specific area. Now, I know there's been some focus on the city itself, but when we take a look at some of the things that we have been able to accomplish as a group, yes, the city has received some of those, but it's been done in a way that is reflective of the entire region. And I'll touch on a couple of things in particular. There isn't an area in Ontario that isn't affected by the opioid issue. I'm hesitant to call it a crisis because there are some connotations that are involved with referring to it as a crisis that I don't think fit across the entire province. We have a detox and rehab center that has taken a number of years to get set up, and it will officially be opened in about 2.5 weeks' time. Now, it is in the city of Peterborough, but it does serve the greater Peterborough area. Anyone in the county is able to get access to this as well. It's 6 detox beds and 6 residential rehab beds. The rehabilitation portion of it is 35 days long. It is the longest of any of the programs in Ontario right now. Most programs are 28 days. After you leave the residential rehabilitation, you go into a community-based rehab program for up to another 2 years, depending on what your issues are and what your challenges are. And the reason I bring this up is that when we designed this, it was the first of its kind in Ontario. The 6 detox and 6 rehab are, in every other community, they are referred to as provincial beds. Meaning, if you lived in Ottawa and you needed detox or rehab, you could be sent to Thunder Bay. You could be sent to Oshawa. It was across the entire province. And the approach that we took was that we had a crisis in this area that needed to be dealt with in this area. So 5 of the 6 beds in both detox and rehab are reserved for Peterborough City, Peterborough County, and Northumberland County. And the reason that we did that is that we didn't have something that was local for someone to be detoxed and rehabbed. This gives us the ability then to be treating people in their own home community. We still accept someone from outside of this region because there will be people who cannot be detoxed and rehabbed in their own community. They need to be taken out of that community. And for that reason, people from Peterborough County may need to go to a different area to actually go through that process. So one of the beds is reserved for anyone in the province. The other 5 are reserved for people from Peterborough County or Northumberland County. But if you, as an individual who's suffering from one of these challenges, needs to go someplace else, you still have the opportunity to go someplace else. That's something that will have a benefit for the entire region, not just the city. Well, the reason we chose the city was it made sense to have it in an area where we had all of the services available, where we had the companion services that were going to work with it. And with no disrespect intended to Trent Lakes, it's very difficult for someone who perhaps needs to go to the hospital immediately to be taken in under 5 minutes to the hospital because of the distance. Perhaps there's other counseling services that you would need that are not readily available simply because of the geographic size of Trent Lakes and the limited population that's here. So it made sense to put it in the city of Peterborough. On top of that, we were able to accomplish something, again, completely different from any other region in Ontario. It's a pilot project called the Mobile Mental Health and Addictions buses. It is based out of the CMHA in the city of Peterborough, but they are mobile mental health and addiction clinics. And they do travel throughout Northumberland, Peterborough, and Haliburton counties. There are actually 2 of these buses. A couple of service groups stepped forward and provided additional funding so we could buy a second bus. The province came up with the additional funding for it. But this is something that will travel anywhere that it's needed in this area. So if there is somebody in Trent Lakes who is starting to experience a mental health issue before it becomes a crisis, we can intervene. And it means that we'll have healthier neighborhoods as a result of it. This is the pilot area for it, and we're seeing very good results from it. We have, the last number I was told was 109 clients that are ongoing with it, with these buses traveling to each of those locations. It also means that we're breaking down some of the stigma. It's a word I don't like to use, but I think it's appropriate in this case because that mobile crisis unit, that mobile mental health unit travels directly to you. You can have it in the comfort or the privacy of your own home or in the bus itself. It is set up as a complete clinic. And it means that you don't find yourself going to a very visible location where you might be afraid that someone else is seeing you and might be passing judgment on you. That's not happening because it's mobile, it's coming right to you. And we're seeing very good success from that. We know that we've had a shortage of doctors for a number of years. It takes between 5 and 7 years for a doctor to be trained. And I don't think we want to be in a position where we're expediting that and reducing the amount of education that a doctor has. And I've had people say to me in the past, we should be doing things to fast track this. And again, with no disrespect intended to any profession, in order to be a kindergarten teacher, you need a 4-year university degree and then 2 years of teacher's college afterwards. 6 years of education to be a kindergarten teacher. I don't think that there is a person alive who would say a kindergarten teacher requires more education than your physician does. So we cannot find ourselves in a position where we are reducing the amount of education that a doctor would need. That means we do have to deal with the length of time. In our very first budget in 2019, we added 50 residence positions to train new doctors in Ontario. Since then, we have added in every year. We now have 402 new positions at university to train doctors. So help is on the way. It just takes that 5 to 7 years for a doctor to be trained. That first cohort from 2019 graduated, most of them graduated this past June. And we have turned the tide. We now have more doctors graduating from university in Ontario than we have doctors retiring. We had a number of years where that was not the case. And with 402 new doctors graduating every year, we will catch up. Now I bring that up because one of the challenges that we have is attracting physicians to the area. We've had a shortage for, as I said, a number of years. When I was first elected, the shortage was 15 physicians. At present, we are short 16. We have had a number of doctors who have retired, but we've been able to attract doctors into the area. And we brought on 2 new things this past year. One is the Peterborough Street Medicine. It is based out of Brock Mission, and this is an opportunity for physicians to be working with some of the marginalized communities, some living in shelters and so on. What that does for us, though, is 64% of doctors graduating from university today want a salaried position. And by about the 5th year of working as a doctor, they transition into wanting a family practice because they recognize that having a family practice, doing fee for service, they can actually make more money. When they come out of university, they want the certainty of the salary because they have some debts that they have to pay, and they want that certainty of the salary. By bringing on the Peterborough Street Medicine as a tool, now we have an attraction tool where we're paying a salary for a doctor to come in. It's actually multiple doctors. They have 1.5 FTE equivalents, full-time equivalencies, but they've been able to bring in multiple doctors for it. On top of that, we have a community health center, something that Peterborough was trying to get from the mid-90s. It has been approved now. We're starting off at $4.3 million a year on an annual basis for it, and it will grow to $8.4 million once it's completely up and running. And it'll serve 11,000 people who do not currently have primary care. There'll be 5 physician full-time equivalencies as well as 5 nurse practitioners. And again, these are positions where doctors are being paid a salary. So we know that the new graduates coming out, this is an attraction tool for them. They want the salary, they want the diversity of the type of patient, but by about the 3rd to 5th year, they've decided to transition into family care. And they become a family doctor in the community. And what we'll see with these 2 things is that constant flow then, every single year, we'll be attracting a new doctor into the area through at least 1 new doctor per year through this, and those doctors will eventually transition into a family practice. I've had people say to me, but this is in the city of Peterborough. How can I guarantee that they're not simply going to remain in the city of Peterborough? And here is my response to that. At Queen's Park, I continually refer to my riding as God's country. And this truly is God's country. If you are a professional who has the opportunity to live anywhere in the community that you practice because you have a healthy salary, why would you not want to live where your backyard is Lower Buckhorn Lake and you can sit on your deck listening to the loons while you drink your coffee before you start the morning, and you have all of that nature and that great lifestyle that you can have. So what I see happening is we'll be able to bring these physicians into the city of Peterborough because of these attraction tools, and they will fall in love with Peterborough County and all of the things that Peterborough County has to offer. And they'll move into those areas where they can have a great quality of life. They'll raise their families and they will be part of this community and bring their practice here. I truly believe that this is the best of both worlds for bringing in physicians that way. And I see that as one of the biggest things that we'll be able to use to bring a doctor. As the member of provincial parliament, I have to spend a significant amount of time in Toronto. And if I have my choice, I would not be in Toronto. I've said many times that the best part about Toronto is seeing it in my rearview mirror. And I think that once any professional has the opportunity to see the type of lifestyle that they can live in this community, they will want to live here. I've spent a lot of time in the last 7 years dealing with some of our healthcare related problems. And there'll be a change in focus in this term. I recognize that although it is a wonderful place to live, there are limited employment opportunities. And over the next 4 years, what I'll be spending most of my time dealing with is housing opportunities and employment opportunities, because the two go hand in hand. The reality is, if you don't have a strong economy, you don't have anything else. You cannot have the money that you need to pay for those things that you become accustomed to if you do not have a strong economy. We've struggled for a generation in having employment opportunities. There was a time in the 80s and even into the early 90s where Peterborough County was considered the litmus for all of Canada. And companies would test market their products in this area before it would go someplace else, because we had a university and a college. We had white collared work, we had blue collared work, we had agriculture, we had everything that was available all across Canada was represented in Peterborough County. We don't have that anymore. We saw a downturn in the 90s where Kendall had been here and left. Johnson & Johnson had been here and left. OMC had been here and left. General Electric left just a couple of years ago. They'd been in the community for more than 125 years. We've lost a lot of that higher end manufacturing, higher end blue collar work. And we need to find a way to bring it back. We need to be looking at ways that we can create partnerships with all of the townships and the city and take the things that we have that are positive from each of the partners to create an opportunity for us then, so that our kids don't have to leave this community. The reality is that Trent University and Sir Sandford Fleming College combined graduate close to 5,000 young, able-bodied, willing employees every single year. And they have to leave our community to find jobs someplace else. I'm 55. My children are 26, 27, and 28. One still lives in Peterborough. He works in Bowmanville. My daughters have both had to leave. They both live in Toronto to find employment opportunities. As I said, I'm 55. There will come a point where I will have grandchildren. I would like to see those grandchildren. I don't want to have to travel a few hours to spend part of a weekend with them. I'm being very selfish on it, I freely admit. But I want opportunities for my children to have employment, to raise their families in this type of a community, so that I get to see my grandkids when they're actually born. So I get to spend some time with them. And I think that's the case for others who are in my age bracket. I think that's the case for people who are just slightly older than I am, who do have grandchildren. They want those opportunities for their kids. They want those opportunities for their grandkids. They want their family to know that they don't have to leave in order to have meaningful employment, in order to have a good quality of life. There are people who will say that living in the city is a good quality of life. I live in Duro-Dummer. When I have my morning coffee in the summer at 5:30 and I'm feeding an apple to the deer who has walked up to my deck. I could never have that at the condo I have in Toronto on the 19th floor. I'm not sitting on my deck, I'm falling out the window if I were to step outside to have my coffee. And the deer definitely are not reaching up to the 19th floor to get it. There is a quality of life that we have here that we enjoy that others should have the opportunity to enjoy. We need to make sure that what we're doing over the next 4 years of my provincial term is to provide those opportunities for everyone. There have been times where different people, different groups from Trent Lakes have come forward with concepts and ideas on how they could see some development in this area. And it's been stymied because of some of the regulations that have been put forward by provincial governments. And I'll touch on one in particular. There was a proposal for a golf course with approximately 40 homes that would have intertwined around it. And that concept had to be set aside and left because the rules that were in place at the time didn't allow for that type of a development. There's opportunities for employment for this area, for things that are outside of the box thinking. Vertical farming, for example. With vertical farming, what you're doing is you're building a multi-story building that you're farming out of. It doesn't matter what the quality of the land is underneath. You could build a vertical farm on the granite that exists here in Trent Lakes because that doesn't make any difference. What you need is good quality water, which we have an abundance of in this area. And you need access to transportation networks, which we have in this area. We have a rail line that runs through Peterborough County. We have an airport just outside of the city of Peterborough in Cavan Monaghan. We have Highway 115 that connects to the 401 and the 407. 28 at times is difficult to get up and down, but we can deal with that. We have the infrastructure here. We have the underlying assets that we would need to do things like that. But we've been stymied because of rules and regulations that have been put in place. And what I have committed to, and I will continue to commit to, is the province will not be the barrier for whatever it is that creates the improvement for life in Trent Lakes. If we have something that is a barrier that needs to be bypassed, I will offer a ministerial zoning order for it to wipe the slate clean, if that is what makes sense. Again, I'll come back to vertical farming. Perhaps someone comes forward and says, because of the challenges that we've had with the United States, because of the tariffs that Trump has put forward, we all still enjoy orange juice, but we don't want to import it any longer from Florida. The beauty of vertical farming is you can create the environment for the crop that you want to grow. And it would be possible to have an orange orchard in a vertical farm in Trent Lakes. Perhaps if you're saying, I really like tequila, and I'd like to have a tequila plant in Trent Lakes. I know that sounds far-fetched. Tequila is made with a fruit called agave. You could have an agave farm in Trent Lakes in a vertical farm because you can create whatever environment it is that you need. Perhaps you want to have Trent Lakes coffee and you don't want to bring in Caribbean or Arabic beans. You want to grow coffee in Trent Lakes. Now, I know this sounds far-fetched, but this truly is an opportunity for us. The only thing that is limiting you is your imagination on where you want to go with it. And if it makes sense for Trent Lakes, if it makes sense for the greater Peterborough area, then we'll find a way to do it. We need to shift, have a a large culture shift away from simply saying no when someone comes forward with a unique and different idea to, all right, how do we make that work? And instead of looking at it as a problem, start looking at it from a solutions based. And that's the approach that I'll be taking over the next 4 years. We have had we started having mayor's meetings during COVID. Those continued after COVID. Originally it was every week. They went to every 2 weeks. We took a break just before Christmas. And then obviously with the election, we had those on break again, but we did start the mayor's meetings back up again. So we're meeting again on a regular basis every 2 weeks. We get together to discuss some of the issues that we have that are common with all of the communities, things that are coming down from the province. And we're going to continue having that dialogue so that we have those good working relationships. If there are things that you want to see being done, Mayor Lambshead is the conduit for you. Bring those through to Mayor Lambshead. He can bring them up with the other mayors and myself, and we can find a way to make it work. But we will be working closely together. It will be a collaborative approach because you have two options. You can move very quickly when you work by yourself, but you can move far more and far more effectively when you work together. And we have that good working relationship that I think will continue on. Now we have some local issues that have come up. Some of it as a result of things that the province has wanted to be done. And I'll touch on that specifically with the OPP. We no longer have an OPP police services board in each municipality. It's come together as Peterborough County now. When it was first set up, there were going to be 3 provincial appointees. I do not represent all of Peterborough County. So my colleagues, Laurie Scott and David Piccini, were given an opportunity to also have input on who the provincial appointees were. For me, it was easy because I already had some people lined up for it. But for Laurie and David, they weren't quite in the same position. Laurie has come back and asked me if I could find someone else for the Police Services Board. We do have another gentleman who was in the process. He was on the Police Service Board in another township in Peterborough County. Once our Solicitor General is sworn in tomorrow, it is simply the stroke of a pen, and he should be put on the Police Services Board, bringing us to 2 of the 3. I've had conversations with Minister Piccini as well, and I believe he is going to defer to me as well on appointing the 3rd person for it. And we have 2 individuals that we are going through the process right now to have put on it. Whichever one I can get the process completed quickly or the most quickly will be the one who is there. I'm not supposed to say who they are. However, I will say the one gentleman has a vast experience as a municipal politician and county politician, and has served on police service boards in the past. I believe that he is the one who is most likely going to be coming back from political retirement to be involved. I can't say his name, but I think he'll be an excellent choice, and I would expect that by the end of next month, all of that would be completed, and the Police Services Board will have the full complement of provincial appointees. There has been some challenges around some of the language for our First Nation members of the Police Service Boards. We think that we've come to a acceptable compromise on some of the language. And again, once the Solicitor General is sworn in tomorrow, we should be able to sign off on that. And the representatives from Curve Lake and Hiawatha should be full voting members at that point then with that. We don't anticipate any problems with it. With the Health Board, there was the merger between Peterborough and Haliburton Kawartha Lakes. Moving forward with that, I strongly believe that the new structure will provide you with an opportunity to reduce the overall cost on delivering high quality health across all of Peterborough County. I don't think that there'll be as much of a burden or a request put at County Council on public health as we move forward. Those are the things that I plan on working on. It's kind of a summary of what's happened over the last 7 years. And I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have. I suspect there's going to be a couple that I'll expand on, but happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, David. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Lamson. Thanks a lot, Dave. This was very helpful and informative. Appreciate it. Question for you. I represent the county on the Fairhaven Long-Term Care Home Board of Directors. And as you know, they have 264 beds right now. They have an application in to add 50%. So another 128 beds with a special First Nations section, et cetera, et cetera. Also point out that they have a waiting list of 1,226, which is about 10-year waiting list. And all of the admissions in the last 2 or 3 months have been crisis admissions, which they are obliged to take, and they take precedence over the waiting list. So the waiting list doesn't shrink, it grows. And even though individuals can sign up for 3 long-term care homes, Fairhaven is a well-liked, respected one, and that is their primary one. So long way of getting to the answer to the question, which is, can you provide us with any sort of status on that application that's pending?
I'm actually going to expand a little bit on it because long-term care is something that we have been working on significantly. When we were first elected in 2018, we made the commitment of adding 30,000 new long-term care beds. We have awarded 28,000 beds in total. We had actually awarded just over 30,000, but some of those had to be pulled back because of some construction challenges. The Havelock Long-Term Care, I'll start with that. It's a 128-bed facility. Construction began on it just over a year ago. It will open in late July, early August of this year. Be 128 brand new beds in Peterborough County with that. Extendicare has done a massive upgrade of their facility. It was 172, or the existing one is 172 beds. They're going to 228 beds on the new facility that's at Hillside in Peterborough, and it will open in August. So we're adding about 64 beds there, 128 beds in Havelock. There is also one other that we will be having a groundbreaking ceremony in about a week and a half's time. There will be another 256 bed facility in Peterborough County as well as part of it. So we're approaching the 500 bed mark on that with that facility. And People Care, which is partnered with Trent University. They have cleared the land now. They have done the upgrades to the water and wastewater on Water Street. And we expect that they should be in a position to be breaking ground and laying the foundation later this summer with it. Another 224 beds, or 224 beds in total there. Help is on the way when it comes to long-term care. We have partnerships with Fleming and Trent for the nursing students, as well as some of the other staff that would be there, non-health care staff as part of it. So I think that we're in a strong position that we'll have the appropriate staffing levels for all of these beds, which now brings me to the Fairhaven request. Fairhaven didn't have the water and wastewater capacity right there to do the upgrade, which was part of the delay on the approval. We want to make sure that we're in a position that when we approve a new expansion, that the expansion can start right away and that we aren't waiting for a number of years to have whatever infrastructure put in place. That water and wastewater, I'll refer to it as a deficiency, is being addressed pretty much as we speak, which puts the proposal then at Fairhaven into a very different category. Previously, up until now, they were in a category of a future enhancement because they didn't have the underground infrastructure. They will have the underground infrastructure this spring to be able to do that, which will move it into a category then that is much easier to be approved. I can't give an assurance that it will be approved, but what I can say is it's now into a category that makes it far more likely to be approved, because once we give the approval, construction can start almost immediately.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I just have a comment. I think you're being very presumptuous that you're going to get grandchildren. The mental health issue, I mean, I think as we move forward, I think people are becoming more accepting of people having issues with their mental health. I think COVID put a bunch of that out in our faces where we really needed to help each other. And I think people are not afraid to ask for help or go get help now. So I think those buses moving around our community are very important. I think that gets people out there easily to get some help. So I think we all deserve that. So I thank you all for that, everyone that put that together. That's all my comments. I think we have a lot more things we can talk about, but you know, vertical farming is kind of near and dear. I'm thinking that's our future for our fruits and vegetables in this country. So I think this is important steps to take forward, and I look forward to working with you on some of those projects. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you very much, MPP Smith.
Thank you.
Very much, Sally. Okay, we're just going to get a picture. Just can we have a motion to approve or to
Receive it.
Yep, motion to receive the presentation? We got a seconder, Councillor Cadigan. I will call for a vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. And I think we want to get a picture with you in front of the podium. I have to stand back. We're getting wider every day.
It's vertical farming.
That is vertical farming.
We've got to stop the horizontal farming.
Wow.
Awesome, thank you.
I can see it on your radar.
I will. Yeah, thank you.
Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, Alex. Okay. We can move on to, I think, one right there. Item 5 of our agenda, which is committees and boards. Item 5.1 is Environmental Advisory Committee minutes. And item 5.2 is the Committee of Adjustment and Appeals Committee from February 2nd, 4th, I think, right? Anyone like to discuss them, or is anyone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Braber.
I'll make the motion to approve 5.1 and 5.2, and I believe 5.3 is going to be spoken to. So just 5.1 and 5.2.
Yep.
Together.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any further conversations? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on to item 5.3 of our agenda, and Bianca Dragicevic, I think you would like to speak to this item.
Thank you, and through you. At their March 6, 2025 meeting, the EAC recommended that council amend the EAC terms of reference to include Curd Lake First Nation as a voting member on the committee. The committee supports and recommends this change to their terms of reference, as Trent Lakes is situated on traditional Treaty 20 territory, and Curd Lake First Nation is an important voice on this committee. They also acknowledge that they feel the influence and impact of the vote would be, or of Curd Lake First Nation would be greater if the representative on the committee is a voting member. Any amendments to the terms of reference of a committee require council approval and shall be initiated by a staff report to council to address the impact of the amendment as outlined in the committee and board policy. So staff are recommending that the report be received and that council direct staff to investigate amending the terms of reference to include Curd Lake First Nation as a voting member of the EAC. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone want to have any comments or questions? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Thanks, Mayor Lamson. I am on the committee, and I think we all supported Curve Lake as being a voting representative. That individual is one of the more engaged members of our committee, and just seems appropriate since that individual is in our municipality to have a vote. The only other comment I would make is in light of some of the comments this morning, I don't think we need an extensive staff report. This is not a decision-making body, it's an advisory body. So I think I appreciate the need to do a little bit of benchmarking and so forth, but I don't think we need a lot of work or time spent on the staff.
Okay, thank you very much. Did you make that a motion as we're?
Oh, so I will make the motion that we receive the report and direct staff to investigate, and then in terms of reference, investigation light.
Now, do I have a seconder for that motion? I see Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any other conversation about the item? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you very much, Bianca, for your report. Now we can move on to item 5.4 of our agenda, which is liaison reports for council, boards, and committees. Does anyone have any reports? I'm seeing none. We can move on to item 6 of our agenda, which is statutory public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act. And I would entertain a motion to suspend our regular council meeting and go into a public meeting. Councillor Cadigan for a mover. Councillor Franzen for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. We are now in a public meeting, and I think we can ask Derek Bertram to please speak to the items.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lambshead, this is a public meeting under section 17 and 22 of the Planning Act to consider an amendment to the municipality's official plan for official plan amendment number 6, and also a public meeting under section 34 of the Planning Act for zoning bylaw amendments files 2428 and 2429 to consider an amendment to the municipality's comprehensive zoning bylaw B 2014-070. A notice of today's public meetings were containing the prescribed information was posted on the municipal website. And with the exception of zoning bylaw amendment 2429, which is a municipally initiated sauna bylaw, OPA number 61 and ZBA 2428 were circulated to all landowners within 120 meter radius of the subject lands at least 20 days prior to this meeting, and a sign was posted on the subject land in accordance with the Planning Act. The notice was also mailed to all prescribed agencies, public bodies, and persons in accordance with the regulations. Anyone wanting to be notified of any decision from today's public meeting must inform either myself or the clerk, and a notice of passing will be mailed to them setting out the method and manner in which the appeals may be made to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Please note that if a person does not send in written comment prior to the passing of the bylaw or make an oral submission at the public meeting, that person may not be entitled to appeal the decision.
Okay, thank you very much, Derek Bertram, planning technician. And I do believe Adele Arbor, you would like to speak to this item, our planner.
Yes, and thank you. Through you, Mayor Lambshead, a report was presented to Council at the February 18th Council meeting in reference to Council's direction to undertake a municipal-initiated zoning bylaw amendment to define and permit saunas as an accessory use in shoreline areas with appropriate regulations. As noted in that report, planning staff reviewed 8 municipal zoning bylaws from other areas of the province, which included definitions and regulations for saunas. Staff prepared a draft zoning bylaw amendment appropriate for Trent Lakes, which was appended to the staff report. In addition to the proposed definition of a sauna, the regulations apply to saunas as an accessory use in a shoreline residential zone, a shoreline residential private access zone, or an island residential zone. The following regulations are proposed. A minimum water yard setback for a sauna with a floor area up to 10 square meters is proposed at 15 meters. A minimum water yard setback for a sauna with a floor area up to 15 square meters is proposed at 30 meters. The maximum height measured from grade to peak is proposed at 3.5 meters, minimum side yard setback at 4.5 meters, and the sauna shall not be constructed on or attached to a deck. Minimum separation from a dwelling unit is proposed at 5 meters. The report and draft bylaw were available on the municipal website for public review and comments. No inquiries or comments have been received from the public. Today's public meeting is an opportunity for public consultation prior to Council's consideration of a municipal-wide proposed zoning bylaw amendment for saunas. Mr. Mayor, I hand it over to you for the public input portion of the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much, Adele Harbert. Is there anyone in the gallery for or against this item? Is there anyone in the virtual gallery that would like to speak to this item? No hands up. Okay, is there any comments or questions from the council? Go ahead, Councillor Cadigan.
Through you, Mayor. I have one question. It's regarding decks with the sauna. Why are decks not allowed?
Adele?
Through you, Ms.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
through you, Mr. Mayor. It was a decision that we threw out there because there are provisions for freestanding decks in a water yard, but given that a sauna is a structure and based on the various other site-specific zoning bylaw amendments we've dealt with regarding saunas, we felt that the deck was an added feature that isn't really necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I just had a couple of questions from a couple different ratepayers about the distance from the water for the smaller one. If you're getting out of a sauna, you don't want to run 50 feet to the water. Is there a reasoning behind the 50 feet or the 15 meters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we just looked at the various other 8 bylaws we reviewed and we took a conservative number. And as you recall, some of the site-specific amendments we've dealt with in the past, I think we had 2 or 3. And some of the concern from people across the lake was that the structure was too close to the water and was visually, could be seen visually from across the lake and didn't really attract a good rapport with being visual from, you know, where their decks are and things of that nature. So we were trying to be conservative and went back the 50 feet for a sauna that was 10 square meters, and further back if there was a larger sauna at 15 square meters.
Okay, thank you very much for the reply. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? No, sorry, no motion. I'm incorrect. Yeah, that's right. My apologies. It's in the wrong section for a motion. Okay, we can move on now to items. Thank you very much, Adele. We can move right on now to item 6.2 of our agenda. And Derek Bertram, our planning technician, would you like to introduce this file, please?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lambshead and members of council. For our second public meeting, we have zoning bylaw amendment 2428 submitted by agent Vanessa Archer of TD Consulting on behalf of owners Jarda and Jennifer Smers for the property known municipally as 10 Fire Route 199. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone a property from shoreline residential private access to shoreline residential private access with an exception zone to permit the construction of a replacement dwelling with a finished walkout basement in the water yard having a total floor area of 236.7 meters squared at a setback of 14.9 meters. A planning memorandum from the municipality's external planner is on today's agenda, which is support of the proposed amendment. Staff have received one comment in support from the neighboring property owners for the proposed amendment, and comments have also been received from the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board with no concerns. And that concludes the summary of zoning bylaw amendment 2428. And I'll turn the floor back over to you, Mayor Lambshead.
Okay, thank you very much, Derek Bertram. Is there anyone in the gallery for or against this application? Please come to the podium.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me?
Thank you.
Vanessa Archer, the agent for the file here on behalf of the owners. I would just like to thank the planner external planner and Derek, the internal planner, for the work on the file, and as well as Adele, I believe, is involved. We have provided an archaeological shoreline restoration plan through Chris Jones. I believe his report touches on that. And I'm really just here if you have any additional questions or concerns.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just wondering if there's anyone online that would like to speak for or against this application before we get to questions. Okay, we're seeing no hands. Does anyone on council have any comments or questions? So Vanessa. Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor Lambshead. I don't know if this is for you, Vanessa, but it's a question. I see that the owner needs to utilize a municipally owned unopened road allowance for access. And it looks like there are discussions about having an agreement around that. I'm just wondering, was the alternative of the owner purchasing the unopened road allowance considered as an option.
I'm not sure who would like to answer that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I may let Derek answer that a little better, but we do have a site plan agreement, I believe, that the owner has signed back that Derek has on file as well. And one of the points in there is about that unopened right of way and the use of it, but I will let Derek speak to the other part of that question.
Through you, Mayor Lamb said, my understanding was that if it being of pre-existing nature, that it was going to be continued to be able to be used. And I believe Adele may also be able to expand on that, as that was the general conversation, I believe, between the external planner, Chris Jones, and Adele Arbor.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Adele, would you like to speak to that question?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. We've had some discussions, and because it's an existing access, that we are recognizing that in the site plan agreement. And as we go forward in the future, if anybody wants to provide access to a new build or a vacant property via municipal road allowance, we will be entering into agreements with them as well.
Okay. All right, thank you very much for that. So that answered the question.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, that's perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, any other comments or questions? I don't see any comments or questions, Vanessa. I think you got off the hook easily that time.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we can now move on to item 6.3 of our agenda. Derek Bertram, would you like to speak to this item, please?
Of course, through you, Mayor Lamb said, and members of council. For our third public meeting, we have official plan amendment number 61 submitted by Michelle Duong and Marnie Saunders of DM Wills Associates Limited for the property known municipally as 488 Elam Lodge Road under the ownership of DK Automobile. The purpose of the official plan amendment is to amend Schedule A1, which is the land use and transportation plan for the Harvey Ward, to redesignate the subject lands from rural to recreational dwelling area to facilitate a future consent application for the creation of 2 residential lots and a retained residential lot. A planning memorandum from the municipality's external planners on today's agenda, which is supportive of the proposed amendment. Staff have received 1 comment from the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board with no concerns. And that concludes the summary of the official plan amendment number 61. And I turn the floor back over to you, Mayor Lamson.
Okay, thank you very much, Derek Bertram. Is there anyone in the gallery that would like to speak for or against this application? I'm seeing no hands. Is there anyone online that would like to speak for or against this application?
I have Marnie Saunders. I'll unmute you now.
Hello, Marnie.
Hello, through the Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, members of council and the public. My name is Marnie Saunders. I am a senior planner with DM Wills, and I am acting as the agent on behalf of the owner for this application. I've read and reviewed the staff report presented earlier at today's meeting, and I agree with the recommendations and conclusions therein. Just to reiterate, we are proposing to redesignate the subject property from rural to the shoreline residential designation. It's mostly a housekeeping item, as the zoning already zones the subject property multiple residential for the shoreline. The official plan designation is required in order to permit the future consents of the subject property, which is proposing 2 consents for the creation of 2 new lots and 1 retained lot. Otherwise, we feel that the overall application is consistent with the provincial policy documents and the relevant official plan and zoning bylaw. And I'm here available to answer any questions from members of public or council.
Okay, thank you very much, Marnie Saunders.
Thank you.
Okay, does anyone on council have any comments or questions? I'm seeing no comments or questions. The staff have any comments or questions? Seemed it went quiet. Adele, is your microphone working? It's getting it up. Okay, I'm seeing no more comments or questions. Thank you very much, Marnie, for being at our meeting.
Thank you.
We can move on now to item 7 of our agenda, which is the business arising out of our public meeting. And we need a motion to reconvene our regular council meeting. Councilor Brabert for mover, Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any further conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, we can move on to item 7.1 of our agenda. And Adele Arbor, would you like to speak to this item, please? her plan.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I gave some consideration to the question that was posed during the public meeting about the conservative 50 feet and 100 feet. And I guess we have to start somewhere in terms of being conservative. We didn't receive any input from the public at all. And there's always an opportunity if someone wants a variance to that number, and we will deal with each application on a site-specific basis, but we needed to start somewhere with a conservative number, and I thought 50 feet was appropriate for that size of a sauna. So it's being recommended that council receive the information provided in the statutory public meeting regarding zoning bylaw amendment file number 24-29, and further that council direct staff to bring forward the draft bylaws presented for council's approval, and will bring that forward to the next council meeting.
Okay, thank you very much, Adele. Does anybody have any comments or questions, or is prepared to make a move? Go ahead. Councillor Braber, go ahead.
Thank you. I'll make a motion that council receive the information and that council direct staff to bring forward the draft bylaw as presented for council's approval.
Okay, do I have a seconder? I see Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any further conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you very much, Adele Arbor, our planner. Okay, we can move on to item 7.2 of our agenda. Derek Bertram, our planning technician, would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lambshead, and members of council. There was a public meeting held for file 2428. Municipal staff are recommending the following: that council receive the report from the planner for the zoning bylaw amendment file 2428, and pending confirmation the applicant has executed the site plan agreement that was provided the applicant's agent on March 7th, which staff can confirm has been executed, and that council approves zoning bylaw amendment file number 2428.
Okay, thank you very much, Derek Bertram. Any members of council have any comments or questions? Councillor Braber, go ahead.
Make a motion to receive the report and that council approve the zoning bylaw amendment file number 24-28.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any further conversation about the item? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on now to item 7.3 of our agenda. And Derek Bertram, would you please introduce the file?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lambshead again. There was also a public meeting held for official plan amendment number 61, and municipal staff are recommending the following: that council receive the report from the planner for the official plan amendment 61, and that council approve official plan amendment 61 and direct staff to forward the adopted OPA to the county of Peterborough for final approval.
Okay, thank you very much, Derek. Any comments or questions from council? Is anyone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Cadigan?
Motion to receive the report and approve the official plan amendment.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any further conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you very much, Derek Bertram. Move on now, because item 8 was presentations, and we move that up in our agenda. So we can move on now to delegations, which is item 9 of our agenda, and we have none. We can move on to item 10 of our agenda, which is staff reports, and 10.1 is public works, 10.1.1. Matt Widgets, our supervisor of waste and public works coordinator. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Yes, thank you, sir. Through you, Mayor, I would like to present this report just for information regarding agricultural and marine plastics collection. Storage of boats requires large amounts of plastic wrap, as well as some agricultural processes needed. And afterwards, you can reuse it, but most people recycle it or get rid of it. Currently, we do not accept agricultural and marine plastics. It's one of the few things we actually turn down at the gate. So in order to combat that, we have reached out to a recycling plant. They have agreed to drop off a truck for about 3 weeks, we are estimating. The truck will remain on site, and residents will be able to bring in their agricultural plastics. It's a relatively cost-effective solution to getting rid of these, and it's much better, of course, than putting them in our landfills. They are all recycled by this company, at a relatively low cost. So the only thing we will be paying for is truck rental, and it's only $300 a week. And we purchased the bags ahead of time, which they have to be placed in, and we will just recover that cost by charging residents $10 a piece, which I think is reasonable. And then we will haul it away, and that will be it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Any comments or questions? Councillor Cassidy, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Lamb's head, I'm wondering what the date of the truck arrival will be.
So our intention is to have it available at least a week before and after May 24, as that's when a lot of people have already had their boats taken out. We want to make sure we hit that deadline, and we will be ensuring that we advertise it on all of our platforms to make sure that residents are aware of this new program.
Comment if I may.
Sure, please go ahead.
I'm glad to see this program coming because anybody that owns a boat will tell you, what do you do with your garbage? You melt it into a big wad and bury it in the ground, or?
I hope not. I hope not.
What else do you do with it? That's been a problem in the
I will
past.
say that the first thing we say when it's brought to the transfer stations before we recommend they burn it is to bring it back to the marina, because most marinas do have this program in place. However, in recent years, there has been one or two marinas, I believe, in the Ketchakoma area that are not doing it. And there are a few private residents who are providing the service, but do not have the program for recycling afterwards. So.
And that was my question was, are we going to accept them from marinas and things?
No, that's not the intention.
Okay, that was the question. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none. Anyone prepared to go ahead? Councillor Franzen.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to receive the report from Supervisor of Waste and Public Works.
Do I have a seconder for that motion?
Could I second it? Suggest a friendly amendment of just add the word receive and support the initiative.
Yep.
Support the project.
You're okay with that friendly amendment, Councillor
Yeah.
Franzen? Okay. Any further conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you very much. I think that's a way to divert some things from landfill or other places that are inappropriate. Great idea. Thank you. Okay, we can move on now to item 10.2 of our agenda, which is recreational facilities, and 10.2.1 is Dylan Tosh, our Director of Recreational Facilities. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you have a report regarding the proposed Buckhorn Food Pantry feasibility. On February 4th, a delegation was made by Janet Clarkson of the Buckhorn Lions Club to install a kind of community food pantry fridge setup in the north side of the equipment storage building at the Buckhorn Sports Pad. Staff took a considerable amount of time to research all the different considerations for this, including the effects on the sports pad operations, building and planning considerations, fire safety, human resources, food safety. It's all in the report there. I'm not going to read it all to you. It's quite a long report, obviously. I do have all of our subject matter experts here behind me as well. So if there's a specific question on a building matter, a fire matter, I would defer it to those individuals. Our department spoke with the health unit, the insurer. So if there's questions on those items, then I will try to take those questions. So I will leave it to you guys to discuss and ask away.
Okay, thank you very much for the very detailed report, Dylan. We do appreciate all the effort that you put into this, and thank you very much for that. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor Lamson. Thanks very much, Dylan, and everyone else who contributed to it. I'll let my position out. Good idea, wrong location. It's a very lengthy report, but there are at least 5 barriers to getting it implemented there. And I'll just go through them first. The 2 buildings are at capacity already. Secondly, change in occupancy triggers a permit and compliance. Number 3, we'd have to reopen or amend the lease with BCC. 4, changing it to a food premises triggers Peterborough Public Health requirements. And number 5, and this is less tangible, is just potential cannibalization of donors and food supplies. So again, good idea, too many barriers, wrong location.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. Deputy Mayor Armstrong, any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Braber.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I appreciate the Deputy Mayor's comments. There was, I did speak with Janet. I don't know whether this is the proper time to share it.
We're talking about.
Yeah, so I did meet with Janet last night at the location. And she had shared with me that both her and Pete Clarkson had attended 2 other food share locations, one in Aurelia, and she did take pictures of both locations. And I observed those, and basically one was like a 6x8 that would, when you open the door to access it, basically the freezer was right there. There was no chance of any entry into the building. So I liken it to if you're in a grocery store and you're picking out your frozen veggies or whatever in an upright freezer. That's basically how they were set up in Aurelia and the other location. I believe it was Innisfil. So what I envision is to take out some of the barriers that the Deputy Mayor alluded to, especially with the building code and the building department, would be to perhaps start fresh with a small build of 6.8 structure that could be built off-site. Now this is me, not having any building experience, built off-site and then delivered to the area, and then have it placed, and it appears that there's enough space, have it placed in front of the building that the initial proposal was. So, and I think that that would alleviate it as well. Change of use. It would, I don't know whether it would require a permit, which I think it would. And I think with a new build, all the Peterborough Public Health issues could be addressed during the build, and any other sort of building issues. And the profile of the 6x8 unit could be easily moved. If it's a pilot project, if it looks like it's not working, then it's not a structure that cannot be moved to make room. So I'm in favor of it. However we can get it done, I'm in favor of it. And I was happy to see that the Buckmore Community Center do have an appetite to, they're willing to revisit the lease if that's what needs to be done. So that was promising as well. And the Kawartha food share comments, as far as, I mean, they made sort of in one sentence, it was a contradictory where they said that the outreach, the current outreach that we have that services 9 families, just over 20 people, would suffice. And then on the other hand, they said, however, there potentially is a need for this type of food pantry. And one delineation that I'd like to mark where it sort of isn't the same as the outreach is, with the outreach, there is some sort of contact and I guess identification of the family or families in need with the food bank. And I know it's anonymous and there's anonymity, but I think with this having it completely anonymous, that people can choose when they go and pick up the food. And an argument was made too that the BCC is busy and, you know, the rink and whatnot, but people can pick and choose their time when they want to go and pick up the food. So those are my comments, and I am in support of it, however we can get it done.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rayber, any other comments? I just have a couple. I'm heading to Uxbridge to look at another one of these, just to have a look and see what it is. They seem to be very, very small units that are sat outside of something else, like a community center, a skating rink. So the public being around, I don't think is a deterrent. This is not meant to be a food bank. This is meant to be, if you're driving home from town and you don't have sufficient funds on you to get dinner for yourself and your family, you could stop there and get a head of lettuce, or you could get whatever else is there that might make your dinner that night. It's not meant to be going every day, or every week, every month. It's occasional use where you really just need a help for that day or a couple of days. This is not a food bank. This is just a food pantry. Much like going to your own home, you go to the pantry and get a couple things out of it for dinner. I think this is a really good asset as a pilot project to try this for a year and see what we can do. I think we just have to get to where we can do it rather than find all the reasons we can't. I think the reasons we can't do it in that building are legitimate. It's really not been built for that sort of an idea. So I think as you look at some of these, and I've seen some pictures, is where you open doors to the fridge. The fridge is right in front of you. You don't step in anywhere. You don't go in anything. It's just right on the ground, and you just open the door, get the thing you need for tonight, close the doors and leave. So I think if after talking with several people in our community, they would use this once in a while, maybe spring, fall, maybe winter, but never in the summer. So I think there is a need for something similar to this. So once I look at this other unit, I'll bring back some information for council and staff to look at. Thank you very much for the report. Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm just not sure where we go from here. The recommendation is that we receive the report, which is fine, but it doesn't give us any direction. So are we continuing to look at it in this location or not? If so, it's a different proposal and we need staff to review that. So I'm not sure what the next steps are on this. And I think we need to be clear about that for ourselves, and as we talked about this morning, and for staff, so that we don't waste their time or create a big work project for them.
I agree 100%. I think that we receive this for information and we'll bring this back to council.
And sorry.
I think we receive this for information and we can bring this back when I get some more information. I will bring some information to share with people so we can have another look at this.
So
I don't think there's any need
come
for
forward or what? I'm not sure. Would another proposal be brought forward?
Yes, absolutely. Because this proposal that we originally had, it's not going to work. It's just there's too many barriers. We all know that. The idea was simple in its infancy, but it becomes very complicated when you start to have to obey all the rules and regulations that are around something like this. And I understand that, and I appreciate that, and I thank staff for getting us all that information. I think that any new proposal will be much more simple. And we'll see. I mean, there's information from the other areas that we're going to bring back that this was very simple for them to accomplish in a very small contained unit. Go ahead, Councillor Brake.
Through you, Mayor, could it be to Deputy Mayor Armstrong's want? Could we make a motion to have yourself, Mayor Lampshead, liaise with staff in order to come up with a new proposal with new information?
Well, I think the proposal myself for my own is on the proponent of this idea. I don't think it's up to me to have that bring back a proposal. I think the proponent of this idea has to change their.
Yeah, I think it's more of a discussion of logistics and that sort of, so staff know what sort of you're expecting from the new information that we've received and that sort of thing. So
I certainly will work with staff to get some information shared between us, absolutely. If you would like to make, because I can't make that motion. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Thanks very much. But I think if we're going to ask staff to do more work on this, it has to come as a direction from council. So I think the first thing is we need a new proposal. It needs to be brought before council, and then we need to be direct staff for a report.
I agree. That's exactly how I would like to proceed.
Perfect. Thank you.
Get them to bring a new proposal with more information and different information. And then we can make a decision on that and then direct staff to do what we'd like. Okay. So from my point of view, I would just receive this and we move on and we can, but that's, I'm not allowed to make a motion. Go ahead, Councillor Gaddy.
Motion to receive.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any further conversation? Go ahead, Councillor
One
Trent.
comment. I'm going to ask for a recorded vote because I have to abstain from voting on this because I'm a member of the Lions Club
Okay,
in the farm.
thank you. Okay. Okay, any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I will call, oh, I can't call for the vote. I'm in trouble already.
Sorry, through you, Mayor. So we're voting on.
Just receiving.
Just receiving?
That's all we're voting on right now. That was the original motion.
Councillor Branson, are you in favor?
Abstain.
Mayor Lambshead?
Yes, I'm in favor.
Deputy Mayor Armstrong?
Yes.
Councillor Brayback?
Yes.
And Councillor Branson, or Councillor Cadigan?
Yes.
That's carried.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Now we can move on to item 10.3 of our agenda, which is fire and emergency services, and 10.3.1. And thank you very much, Dylan. My apologies. Thank you. 3.1 is Steve Brockbank, the Director of Emergency Services. Would you like to speak to this item?
Forget what I was going to say now. Thank you, Mayor. Through you to and council, before you have a report with recommendations of entering into a new forced fire management agreement with the Ministry of Natural Resources. If there's any questions or comments?
Okay, thank you very much. Any members of council have any comments or questions regarding this item? Seeing Councillor Cadigan, go ahead.
Through your Mayor Lambshead. Chief, I've heard comments from Crystal Lake residents that they like to go to Loom Lake fishing. There's been a lot of camping around the lake. They've asked me what we can do, the township municipality, to try to enforce rules. And I'm just wondering, will this give us more power to prevent campfires there? What will the outcome be?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Cadigan. That's kind of a double departmental issue, so to speak, or maybe even triple. Today's renewal of the agreement is to give the Loom Lake and the access corridor back to the Ministry of Natural Resources for them to protect instead of our municipal fire service, just to be able to tax our staff and equipment and stuff less. It is actually their property to begin with that we were protecting for them to reduce our rates under an agreement. So upon our agreement needed to be renewed this year, reviewed or revised. So I'm looking at making our territory smaller, giving it back to the MNR, and then which is their property, which they can patrol and look after. So their conservation officers are their authority. So they're the ones that write any sort of ticketing or whatnot. So that would be maybe the direction of bylaw for us to put that forth to the ministry, or maybe even council pushing that back up to the MNR with our recommendations that there is a lot of activity going on in there, and whether they know it or not, that we can push that back up as for your constituents and such, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Because it is a hot spot lately, just before COVID, so to speak, and it's been taxing for our department. So going back over the last 10 to 15 years, we've been in there for days on end, and it's cost lots of taxpayers' dollars. So we're over the $40,000 mark in the last 13 to 15 years on staffing, and 8 to 10 days at a time fighting forest fires and stuff like that, because it's within that agreement boundary that we are signed up for. So that's what I'm looking to do today, is just refine that boundary and keep our equipment and staffing in the municipality more, and let them continue on with their expertise fighting wildfires.
Thank you for explaining that.
We're talking the crown land part of it, not private properties. We're still.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Braver.
Yeah, just to build on Councillor Cadigan's. So with what you just mentioned, is there still a reciprocal with the M&R?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So through you, Mayor Lam said, if there's wildfires going on in BC and they're short-staffed or don't have equipment or they're deployed somewhere else, we still will be the first call to assist them, but then we can invoice them for that service.
Thank you.
Hey, any other comments? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks, Steve. I certainly support this. And thank you for bringing it forward. Just I have to ask the question, is there any impact on response time to those areas?
If it's within, through your Mayor Lam said, through, if it's their fire season, they have staffing there at all hours, helicopters, so they can be there the same amount. They have the resources of water bombers and helicopters and ground crews and all that stuff. They have 4 crews, I believe, that are at Stanhope at all times, for the most part, depending on what the fire season is. So to answer your question, it should be the same amount of time.
Perfect.
If
Thank
not sooner. Depending.
Yep, all good.
Any other comments or questions? You mean we don't have a water bomber? Go ahead, Councillor Francis.
Yeah, I was just going to make a motion.
Okay, please do.
Okay. That council received the report from Fire Chief regarding municipal forest fire management agreement, and further that council support entering into a new fire or forest fire management agreement.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Gowdy, and for a seconder, any further conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you very much for bringing that up.
Just one more thing, sorry, through you, Mayor. Councillor Cadigan, if that's something that, if you were to propose something to M&R and need call statistics or something like that from us, or maybe I can't speak for bylaw, but if that's something that you need that for support, then
We'll see what happens this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Rockman. Okay, we can move on now to item 10.4 of our agenda, which is building and planning. We have none. Sorry. Yes, I did. And we can go on to 10.5, which is finance, and 10.5.1 is Donna Taggart, our CAO treasurer. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Yes, thank you, and through you. Before you is reporting required under section 284(1) of the Municipal Act, which requires annual reporting on the council remuneration and expenses. So before you is the report for 2024 for your information.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? I'm seeing none. Does anyone, Councillor Braver, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to receive the report.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any further conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you very much, Donna Taggart. That's it. Got to ask her a question. Anybody have a question for Donna? Okay, we can move on to item 10.6 of our agenda, which is administration. We have none. And we can move on to item 10.7 of our agenda, which is corporate services. 10.7.1, Bianca Dragicevic, our deputy clerk. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you, and through you. Before council are the expenses received for the month of February and the remainder of January for council's approval and authorization. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Braver.
Motion to receive the report and authorize payment.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Franzen for a second. Any other conversation? I do have January and February almost finished, so I will be putting them in. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can now move on to 10.7.2 of our agenda, which is Jesse Clark, our Director of Corporate Services Clerk. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lamshead, the next municipal and school board election is around the corner on October 26, 2026. And in anticipation of this, and in order to proceed through the procurement process, staff are seeking direction on any alternative voting methods or vote and vote counting equipment to be used in the 2026 municipal election. So the report outlines the three main voting methods used in Ontario municipal elections, being electronic voting or internet and telephone, paper ballots with tabulators, or vote by mail. Overall, staff are recommending proceeding with electronic only as it modernizes the election experience for voters and offers convenient, accessible, and secure way to cast a vote without the need to attend a physical voting location, and therefore inherently offers flexible voting times. The report goes into detail about the full benefits of electronic voting, but highlights include the effective and rapid count of votes at the close of voting, familiarity and electronic participation in a variety of other municipal activities, including voting in the last two municipal elections. Provides assurance that a safe and effective election can be planned if other challenges similar to COVID-19 were to occur, and being able to participate in a joint procurement for the voting system, shared advertisements leading up to the voting period, and support from colleagues in Peterborough County on policy creation and throughout the election. It is also cost effective, with the cost per voter in 2022 per electronic voter in 2022 being $7.55, whereas each paper ballot cost $34.03 to cast. Staff recommend proceeding with electronic voting only for the 2026 election and are seeking direction to prepare the necessary bylaw for adoption. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jesse Clark. Go ahead, Councillor Franzen.
Yeah, can I speak to this matter through you, Mayor? I think in-person voting is very important. It's important to celebrate an election day. It's important to celebrate democracy. And even though we only had 100 and some odd people that voted by paper ballot, possibly these people wouldn't vote if it was done electronically. I think it's important, and I would request when a motion is made that it be a recorded vote.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. Go ahead, Councillor Brayberg.
And through you, Mayor, and Councillor Franzen took the words right out of my mouth, so, but I'll add a little bit to it as well. I think it is important that we still offer in-person voting. And I say that in part that, I mean, our demographic, albeit there was 214 that voted with a paper ballot as per the report. I think it is important that we still offer that just because of our aging population that don't have the benefit of operating, a computer or otherwise. I know they can pick up a telephone and that sort of thing, but and that's evidence from our meetings with the seniors. So I mean, every time I say I can, here's my email address, I always get the look, right? So the place goes silent. So
Got the look yesterday.
yeah, so I say that, but I also temper it with, yeah, absolutely, I agree that it's very, very convenient. It's potentially cost saving, although it was $35 times 35 plus or times 214. Is that accurate? Yeah. So I'm in favor of some sort of hybrid, whether it be what our clerk suggested with the option of in-person voting, because it's 215 people. And our voting count we're not dealing with 10,000 people voting and that sort of thing. It's still a smaller population. My comments.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Councillor Franzen.
Through you, Mayor, I also would recommend a hybrid form of voting. I certainly wouldn't want just in-person voting. I think it's important for seasonal residents to be able to vote at their home residence.
Okay, thank you. I think our clerk has a question. Please go ahead.
Sorry, I will just note that including with the hybrid election, voter turnout actually went down from electronic only in 2018.
Hey, Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Lamson. I guess I'm the odd man out here. I think to be more efficient and use our resources effectively, I would be prepared to, as we move to electronic voting only, it costs us 5 times more per vote process and in a paper ballot than it does the others. So, and 214, we can handhold, we have handheld before, we walk them through the process. So it's not that they don't have the opportunity, it's just a different experience. And I appreciate that not everybody likes that or wants to go there, but I think at some point in time, we need to move forward with it. So I realize I'm the odd man out here. If my dad was still alive, I probably would vote the other way. He'd probably beat me over the head and say, Carol, I would still like to go in and submit my paper ballot.
There are many people in our community that say the exact same thing, that I would love to go in and do a paper ballot. But we would have staff here that could assist with a vote. It's just a question.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Lamb said, for the past 2 elections, all the advanced voting has been internet and telephone voting, and we've had a help center here at the municipal office, as well as on voting day when we had just electronic voting or the tabulators as well.
Just because that way, if you want to come here and vote, you can still come here and vote.
Correct.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Do I have a motion? Was that kind of a motion that someone made earlier?
I'll make a motion that we support the hybrid a voting method that includes telephone, computer, and in-person voting.
Okay. And did I? Sorry?
Sorry, can I just confirm that with the paper ballots, you're okay with tabulators?
Tabulate.
Not exactly sure what that means. But
Not manual count.
okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was hoping. Okay. Is that a clear enough motion for you?
Yep.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Braybrook for a seconder. Any further conversation? I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Requested a recorded vote.
Oh, did you still want to record a vote?
Sure.
Okay. I think you need it.
Councillor Franson, are you in favor?
Support.
Mayor Lamb said?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Armstrong?
No.
Councillor Braybrook?
Yes.
Councillor Cadigan?
Yes.
That carried.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. Now we can move on to item 10.7.3 of our agenda, which is mid-term procedure. Would you like to speak to that item, please, Jesse?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lamb said, the Municipal Act requires that every municipality have a procedure bylaw for governing the calling, place, and proceedings of meetings. In 2020, Council adopted the current procedure bylaw after a thorough review of the existing bylaw. And as a best practice, the Corporate Services Department committed to a midterm review of the procedure bylaw as a work plan item. There are general changes and specific changes to note that are outlined in the report. Overall, staff feel that meetings are efficient and effective and that the changes to the procedure bylaw align or enhance current practices. The procedure bylaw is on today's agenda for Council's review and approval. Staff recommend Council support the proposed changes to the procedure bylaw.
Okay, thank you very much for that report. Anyone have any comments or questions? See lots of red lines in there, but it seems simple. Okay, Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Marilyn said. I would like to defer this. I would like to have a paper copy that I can review in detail. This basically dictates how we conduct ourselves at meetings and at committees. And I think it's extremely important that we have time to understand timelines, processes, requirements, et cetera. And I personally don't feel that I've had the opportunity to do that. And I don't think there's any urgency around this. So personally, I would like to defer it, have a paper copy to review in advance of the next meeting.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Go ahead, Councilor Braybrook.
Through you, Mayor, I would support deferring it as well with sharing the comments of Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Okay, any other comments or questions? I see none. Is someone prepared to make a vote?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, make
that
that
we
motion.
defer
A vote,
this
sorry.
until the next meeting and that council members be provided with a hard copy for review in the interim.
Okay. And Councilor Cadigan seconds that motion. Any further conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can now move on to item 11, which is correspondence for information. We have none. We can move on then to item 12, which is correspondence for action. We have 3 items there. If anyone would like to pick one out, or we can do something with them all at the same time. It's entirely up to, go ahead, Councillor Braver.
Make a motion to receive all of them.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any further conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. And we can move on to item 13 of our agenda, which is bylaws. Item 13.1 is bylaws on the agenda memorandum. I think Jesse Clark, our clerk, you would like to speak to that.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lambshead. There are 3 bylaws on today's agenda that didn't have a corresponding staff report or public meeting. B 2025 33 and 34 are to amend the parking amps bylaw and the parking bylaw to correct an error in the fine schedules. And B 2025 37 is a zoning bylaw amendment for file number 2431. A public meeting was held on March 4th, 2025, and staff were directed to do a number of things prior to bringing the bylaw back, which have now been completed.
Okay, thank you very much. We have item 13.2 to item 13.8. If anyone would like to speak to one of them, sorry.
I will just, based on the earlier direction, remove 13.2, the procedure bylaw.
Okay. We have 13.3 to 13.8. If anyone would like to speak to any item in particular, or we can do them all, approve them all at the same time. Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
I would propose a motion to approve them all.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any further conversation about any of the items? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay. We can move on now to item 14 of our agenda, which is business arising out of the previous meeting. We have none. Item 15 is notices of motion. We have none. Item 16 is information items. And I just have, anyone have any information items? I have one. John Millage passed away recently. He was a integral part of our municipality for many, many years. I think he was our clerk. He might have been some other CAO, yeah, and was well liked in our community, and he'll be sorely missed. Our condolences go out to his friends and family, which are many. Okay, any other information items? Seeing none, we can move on now to item 17 of our agenda, which is our closed meeting. I would entertain a motion to go into closed. Councillor Cadigan for a mover, Councillor Brabert for a second, and before I call for the vote, we are going into closed under the Ontario Municipal Act, Section 239(2), to discuss B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, municipal employees, and D, labor relations or employee negotiations, municipal employees. Those are the reasons we are going into closed, and I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We are now in closed. Thank you very much for everyone for attending. Okay, we are back from closed. We can move to item 17.2 of our agenda, which rise from closed. I would entertain a motion to rise from closed and go back into our regular council meeting. Councillor Cadigan for a mover. Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. And we'll call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to item 18 of our agenda, which is business arising from our closed meeting. Item 18.1 is the adoption of the minutes. Entertain a motion. I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a mover and Councillor Franzen for a seconder. For the adoption of the minutes, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to item 19 of our agenda, which is the adoption of the confirming bylaw. Item 19.1 is the confirming bylaw. Mr. Cadigan for a mover. Councillor Franzen for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. I was looking at Deputy Mayor Armstrong on the thing when I seen your hand go up.
Oh.
And we can move on now to item 20 of the agenda, which is adjournment. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a mover and Councillor Brabert for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We are adjourned. Thank you very much to staff, council, and anyone who attended both in person.